another mining, distinguished speakers, you see, the press, ladies and gentlemen, it is normal for such an auspicious occasion to have someone who can ably steer affairs for the day. Therefore, it gives me a great pleasure to introduce the chairman of the occasion. Our chairman for this August function is a native of Kumasi. He entered the University of Ghana in 1976 and was called to the bar as a barrister in 1981. He worked at the Attorney General's office for his national service. He was a private legal practitioner and was the president of the Eastern Region Bar Association. He was appointed as a High Court judge in 2002. Because of his hard work, he was promoted to the Court of Appeal just a year after that. In 2008, he was appointed as a Supreme Court judge. He held several positions in the judicial service and other judicial bodies. He was the chairman of the Legal Aid Commission, the chairman of the Council for Law Reporting, the chairman of the Disciplinary Committee of the General Legal Council, and in 2002, he was appointed as the Chief Justice of Ghana. He retired in May 2023 after 21 years of distinguished career on the bench. Aside being an accomplished legal professional, our chairman is also a football enthusiast. No wonder he was elected as the chairman of the FIFA Disciplinary Committee and also became the first African to be elected to occupy some FIFA judicial bodies. He is married with 4 children. Please join me with a big applause to welcome our chairman of the occasion in the person of the former Chief Justice, Bini Yeboah. Ladies and gentlemen, the chairman, Lord, thank you very much.
And now may Lord Justice the chair of the audience.
Honorable Legal Minister, Honorable Members, Honorable Ministers of State, the Vice Chancellor, Nananom, Mahine, Abridwon, the Linguist, Vice Chancellor, Pro-Vice Chancellor, members of the Academia, the represent eminent members who are all here as a university community. I am indeed honored to be the chairman of this all-important occasion. This is an occasion which marks the 150th anniversary of the sagrenti war. Some of us just decided to learn history and pass it. Unfortunately, we didn't know the inner details of the war, what caused it, and the cause of the war, and as the chairman of the occasion is the end result for this our great kingdom. what happened about 150 years ago. If you look at the brochure, we have assembled eminent speakers who have amassed enough knowledge to share with us. History, they say, must be accurate, free from all distortions. It may be told that in narrating history, there are bitter ones which should not be ignored. There are sweeter ones which we should all swallow. At times we have to swallow a bitter pill just to cure ourselves. So, my Lord, Nanano, distinguished elders of the Asante Mine, I am here to humbly accept the invitation to be the chairman of this great occasion, and I'm grateful to Odu for the Asante and the chairman of the planning committee for giving me this honor for this great and memorable occasion. So I am here to say, I think we all cooperate and have a fruitful discussion as the history starts to unfold for our consumption.
His Lordship Justice Kwesi Ndinyekwa is our chairperson of this august occasion. Please, a round of applause. Thank you for accepting to chair, and we know that your great years of experience, your grace and aplomb will come to bear on today's experience. We now move to the symposium. To introduce our keynote speaker, it's my pleasure to invite Tumfosi Nyakene, who is the chair of the Tumfo Foundation. Make welcome Nana Professor Okiniba Kwache Eji 1 minute.
Chairman of the Jubilee Planning Committee, Mr. Chairman, Chief Justice, Honorable Minister of Education, Minister of Energy, Honorable Matthew Boku President, Dr. Regional Minister of Shanti, Vice Chancellor of the University, and other distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Allow me a few minutes to introduce our keynote speaker for this landmark symposium on the Sacred Hall. We have with us today no other person than the illustrious and prolific historian, Professor Thomas C. McCarthy, also known as Kwaku McCarthy. We'll try to get close to Kwaku. True for Kwaku. Well, Professor McCarthy is a professor of Asante History, Center of West African Studies, Birmingham University, United Kingdom, and Professor of History of Africa, School of Oriental and African Studies, London University. He retired in 2011. He first worked in and on Asante in 1968 at the tender age of 22 and was the youngest faculty member in the History Department of the University of Ghana. He spent the whole of his life working, researching, writing, and publishing on Asante. He has written 2 monographs on Asante, State and Society in Pre-Colonial Asante, and Asante Identities, History and Modernity in an African Village. He has also published over 80 papers on Asante, 50 of which have been republished in his Asante Kingdom of Gold, as is the history of African culture. The history of Asante Kings and the whole country itself. Knowing the importance of research done by the committee that was convened by Otumfo Osei Ajiman Presidency, which started way back in 1939, he singularly edited the final volumes of the typescripts and manuscripts which culminated in the final publication, timeless piece we have with us today, History of Asante by Otunfo Nana Osei Ajiman Prempeh II. His curriculum vitae is replete with anecdotes, and I had a few minutes with him. I had some most best moments of my life. He said when he served as the Royal Golf Caddy for Otunfo Prempeh II. I believe that's where he got a lot of his notes too. Today, his keynote address is on the Symposium Book and its aftermath and reflections. Please join me to welcome our keynote speaker, Professor Knust-Great Hall.
Distinguished guests and the public, I'm very honored indeed to make a short presentation about the sagrenti book. I want to start very quickly with a review of the reign of Kwegedua, who died in 1867. The reason I'm doing this is that Kwegedua was the most pernickety and stickler sort of man when it came to the law. He's known as Kwegwananzi, Kwegwanwise, he's known as Kwegwanwaro. He was somebody who really enforced the laws of the Asante. In the process, he gathered a great deal of money in gold dust, principally, but also in specie and other things. And I say all this because I wanted to underline and emphasize something that I think has been overlooked. When Nana Kwegedua died in 1867, he left behind a very great deal of money. And I will give you some idea of this. The money was stored in three places. It was stored in the Adakagase, the great chest in the treasury. It was stored in the Asante Country Palace in Abarasto, and it was stored elsewhere at Bremen. The sums involved, I've been able to calculate because we know the dimensions of the Adakagase, and with assistance from members of the British Mint, chemists, engineers, the kind of people who can know about the science of gold and the measurement of gold and all the rest of it. We have calculated that the amount of gold contained in the Adakagase alone at Kwegedua's death was in excess of 400,000 ounces. Now, the 400,000 ounces in 1867 were worth 1.2 million pounds sterling. But you know what's happened to gold in our lifetime. The contemporary current gold in Adakagase is somewhere over 2 billion pounds. A lot of money. Now he left this money to his successor, Kofi Kakari. And Kofi Kakari was a wizard. He distributed money to buy popularity, and he was eventually destoled at the end of his effective war. I'll come to the war in a moment, but let me simply say that, to underline what I've already said, that the attempt to get back the treasures looted from Master West, starting boldly in 1874, takes no account, because it cannot, of the gold in gold dust and unworked gold that the British must have carried away with them. We don't know about this. Of course we don't know, because it was loot, private loot, and so it is separate from the cultural artifacts that Nana Tukwo is trying to retrieve from this satellite and retrieve from the top of the God. Now, the war itself is often referred to generally as a colonial war, or a Britain's first colonial war. But we can refine that. We can refine it, in fact, what it was. In the 1860s and 1870s, Britain came to realize that it did not have a first-class army. In fact, it was an army composed of people, rather like in the 18th century, who had bought the commissions. And this had to change, and change it did, and the leader of this change was Sir Garnet Wolseley. Assisted by the War Secretary, Edward Cardwell, he modernized the army, and of course, this didn't mean just modernizing how it was run. It was modernized for the benefit of the Industrial Revolution. And I will name only a couple of things here. The British came to Asante in 1874 with war, 1873 war, with telegraph communications, with people on board the ships who brought the officers to advise them on what Asante was like. In other words, intelligence gathering on a new and unusual scale. They also had with them, and perhaps most crucially, the Snyder rifles. These were a result of revolutionary developments in armaments, and unlike the flintlocks used by the Asante or the muskets used by the Asante, these were very accurate, long-range repeating rifles, the first, or at least one of the first, among modern weapons. So they came, and they came with all this in their baggage and their intentions. Now, Wolseley himself was determined to rise to the head of the British Army, which he eventually did, and he brought with him to Asante a group of officers known as the Wolseley Ring, the Ring of Friends, who would rise with him. So there was a very personal motive in Wolseley fighting this war and being seen to have fought it and won it for himself, for Britain, for Queen Victoria and the rest. And we have proof of this. This was the first war in which the general in command, Wolseley, was accompanied by large numbers of the British press. This war was reported very extensively in England, with jubilation, of course, when Kumasi was taken. Now, the Asante themselves, quickly imagine 30 years before, had maintained a hands-off policy towards any of the states south of the Bra and the Europeans. There were no real or significant Asante adventures south of the Bra in the 1830s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. Queen Raja's view of things was that Asante ruled inland itself and its northern dependencies, and the British ruled the whites on the coast. So it was a world vision that really contrasted the two worlds, Africa and Europe. He was the ruler of Africa, and they ruled all the country by the whites. But of course, this was nothing to do with what Wolseley wanted, or what the British government planned. And so, despite the fact that in 1873, the Asante withdrew those military forces he had north of the Bra and southwards, which almost practically withdrew them and tried to make peace with the British. Wolseley absolutely refused. There is no other word for it. He turned it down flat. Wolseley and the British government were determined to have their war. Now you can imagine the kind of propaganda that was put about by the British about Asante. A savage death, blood running, endless sacrifice, barbarians, rape, risk. So Wolfman crossed the path and went to the bar. Now, one of the things now noticed is that he was only there for a couple of days. He was frightened that the assassin would counterattack. He was frightened that the army would come down with tropical diseases, and so, having secured his victory, he scurried back to the coast very, very quickly, stopping only at Fognac, where he said to enforce a treaty he had drawn up with the Knust-Great. The treaty was a treaty of The treaty was a treaty of permanent peace between Britain and the South. And he asked that Knust-Great, as a sign of goodwill, hand over 50,000 pounds of gold to show he was faith. He never did that because he stood. Now, in the occupation of Diplomacy, the place was, as previously said, the city was burned and comprehensively looted. The Avan, big story building constructed by a sagrenti was gone from Kwame in 1822. The King's Own Palace, they were all ransacked by the British. Now, I told you the amount of gold that was floating about inside the Knust-Great Hall. We have no evidence. Soldiers just filled their pockets or took it away in little wrapping, things like that. So we just do not know about that, but we do know about the cultural treasures. And I just want to mention two of them last, and they're simply this. In the Wellcome Foundation in London, there is the largest gold mask known in sub-Saharan Africa. It is a portrait of Bandini Moroza, defeated and killed by the Santiaguinos in Flango in the 1760s, and it weighs over 2 kilos. Its current value in gold alone, never mind its aesthetic value, its cultural value, its value in gold alone is over 80,000 pounds sterling. The other piece of loot that I want to particularly emphasize was not taken in 1874. It was taken in 1896 when the British returned and arrested the Santinians and French Arab. You would think this was nothing, but somebody must have just picked it up and taken it away. It was a brass basin called Ayakasi, which was displayed before the Royal Mausoleum in Fatima and was part of the practices of recalling the ancestral monarchs of the family. It is simply a brass basin, but the British took it away. When Franklin came back in 1929, he wrote to the British and tried to get this battered brass basin restored. And the British would give it, and it is still in Britain at the United Service of the Army in London. The war itself had a catastrophic effect on the Sun. Catastrophic in the sense that, well, in a number of senses. Above all, it shattered unity. Asante works best when it's united under its king. The British seduced away and led away large numbers of defectors and colony, and Asante descended into a period of anarchy. Now, you all know this anarchy was capped its lowest point was the Civil War that occurred in Asante in 1883 and 1888. There is no doubt at all that the British encouraged resistance to the party, whether by giving arms, which was illegal of course, the British never talked about publicly, money, or just general support, and above all, refuge to those who opposed the attack in the open colony which they had established in 1874 got much time left, so I will simply cover what his plan is. In 1892, the British wrote to Asante Inyatu first, offering him British protection. That is, that Asante, which he was planning to restore to its former status after the Civil War, that Asante should come under formal British protection. Ivory Bradley simply refused. He said, no, we're an independent kingdom. Not only did he refuse, he sent an embassy to London to underline his point that Asante was an independent kingdom. The embassy, some time in London, but the British government refused to see it. And while it refused to see it, it was planning a second invasion of Asante. And this occurred as the embassy returned to the coast and the British advanced up the Basel again in 1896. There, Adjutant Bradley was faced by one of the greatest challenges that any Asante has faced. Should he fight? Should he not? The solution he came up with is beyond that. He knew that after the sagrenti War and after the Civil War, he knew perfectly well that if the British unleashed their military power now on what was a weakened Asante, people would suffer in enormous numbers. So instead of permitting this to happen, he decided to surrender himself and his mother and various other of his dignitaries in his family to the British, provided they prosecuted no military action. So he was taken away as a British captive, and the rest of the story we know. He remained on the coast until 1900, and then he was sentenced to Gabon, and finally to the Seychelles and the Indian Ocean, from which he did not return until 1924. But the Asante themselves had had enough. In 1896, when they took Frankie away, they established a system of direct military, informal rule through collaboration with chiefs, people that they had appointed themselves to run the country. This only lasted for 4 years because the Asante themselves, ordinary people led by chiefs as well, fostered, created, and fought a military uprising against the British in 1900. This is commonly known as the Gaza Wako because of the heroic behavior of the Swiss Diva, the woman Knust-Great. That war ended in ruthless suppression of Asante. This time, there was no offer of friendship. There was no offer of friendship. There was simply the fact that Asante was made a British Crown colony in 1901, was given a British government rule over it in the absence of Asante, and in the aftermath of the war, large numbers of people convicted of treason against the British Crown by fighting for Asante in that war were jailed, hanged, or otherwise deported. Now, there's very little else I need to say, except that this is a shameful episode in British history, like most British history. It's a shameful episode because it was based on industrial life and a racial ideology. The British were never a great continental military power. They did not have large military. What they did have and what they received was an overseas empire for which they could extract money through trade, preferential rates, and all the rest of it. And Asante was one of the earliest additions across the world to that particular empire. It's often forgotten, and this is my final remark here, it's often forgotten how short British colonialism was. age 22, out of Warhead in 1968, I met people who had lived all the way through the British Navy. They were born before the British Navy, and they were there when the British left in 1957. So it is time finally to put this episode in the past and to reassert Asante and go forward into the future. And I encourage most strongly Asante to pursue further the matter of the restoration of the treasures that were taken in 1874 and taken in 1896. Thank you very much.
determines the people? Is it blood? Is it army? Is it gold? Is it money? Stories, my friends. Stories. And what a story we've heard of betrayal, of courage to fight, of values and principles, defeat and utter humiliation, and yet an indomitable will to bounce back and defend nation as Santiman and write our own true and unadulterated history. What we just witnessed, Prof. Tom, is the dead Zoom dance, a very ancient and older dance among us, the Santi, which is going extinct. We reenact it today in your distinguished format to thank you for your amazing work, which is the labor of love for us, the Santi people, of whom you now belong to, as a father and a brother. To you, we say, Yadawasia and Sada, Eja, Neonia, Makasi. Please, a round of applause. We proceed now in this celebration by acknowledging the causes of the war, the cause of the war, as Santiman after the war, but most importantly, the significance of what this anniversary means to our nation moving on. We're delighted to have eminent men and women who are herein gathered to lend us their thoughts on the way forward. Make welcome our moderator, who is the Ellen Ghanaian Professor of History, a proud fellow of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences and a corresponding fellow of the Royal Historical Society, UK, Professor Emmanuel Achampo. Make welcome at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology here in Kumasi, Professor Eugenia Anderson. In their distinguished company, from the Department of History and Political Studies at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, is Ghana's first trained social historian of medicine. Make welcome Professor Samuel. With joy, we receive the former research coordinator of the History and Politics section of the Institute of African Studies, University of Ghana, Professor Samuel Interusi. And last but certainly not the least, our brother, our father, Professor of Asante History at the Center of West African Studies, Birmingham University, UK, Professor Tom Augusta. Prof. the moderator, you have an hour to dedicate.
His Royal Highness, Madam Institute Avenue, Chair of our Silver Jubilee Planning Committee, Honorable Ministers and Parliamentarians, the Vice Chancellor, my academic colleagues since I was at the university, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to stand on all previous protocols which acknowledged our present dignitaries. As Jerry mentioned, my name is Emmanuel Achampo. I'm a professor at Harvard. I will briefly give So we are looking at the last quarter of a century, so from about 1874 through the Yakan War of 1900-1901. Some of my colleagues may share reflections that might go a little forward than that. We have 4 speakers. So our first speaker will be Tom McCaskey to provide a big picture. So we are looking at how the Amantli and the Amantuo fared in this last quarter of the 19th century. So a big view. And then Samuel Ejijemfi will come after that and provide a perspective from Kumasi, a cosmopolitan city, a royal city, and the perspective on this last quarter of a century. Then we'll go to Professor Samuel Ejijemfi, who will look at the missionary factor, both in sagrenti, going through the annexation in 1896-1900. After all, it was the taking of the Ramsiers and Kuni, Boda, keeping them in Kumasi for 4 years, that incited the sentiments that would lead or feed into sagrenti. It is also important to note that as the 1896 expedition came, they were followed by missionaries. So it is not surprising that some of the earliest photographs we have of the submission of Krempel and his mother are from the archives of the Basel missionaries, because they followed the invasion of. Then Anderson, and I've been enjoying conversations with her these last few weeks. I've had the pleasure of being associated with 2 histories by 2 Asante. The first one by Krempel V when he was in the Seychelles, and then the present one that he will launch by Krempel II. In conversations with Eugenia, she challenged me to reflect on what a history of Asante could look like if dictated by an Asante woman, and what that female perspective of Asante could look like. And I think I will sit with that for some time to come. Each speaker will have 12 minutes for opening remarks, maximum 15 minutes. Because they are professors, they are welcome to come to the podium to share their opening reflections. I encourage them to look in my direction, so when I do this, you know you have 3 more minutes, and when I do this, you know you have to stop talking. And since we do points here, stop talking, you stop talking. After they finish, we will open up for Q&A, and I'll ask the audience to ask a question. Let it be a question or a very brief comment. We are creating something called Asantepedia, which will be a popular platform online for individuals and families to deposit stories they have from their families between about 1874 and Krempel the first return in 1924. So if you have good stories, that's where it should be, so that as many people as possible can ask short questions. So that's the format, and I will now invite Tom McCaskey to start the talk. So let us welcome Professor Tom McCaskey.
Getting tired of it, I think. But I can go back and talk about what happened to the family after the Sagrenti War. After the Sagrenti War, Kofi Bakari used to presided over the way of Islam. The trouble was that the successor to was his brother Mensa Bonso. Now, Mensa Bonso was a man of avarice, greedy, and vicious temper. And if you remember this such today, he had a low whispering voice And if he could not hear you, or you could not hear him, he would find you or punish you. He was that sort of person. And the conditions that followed the war, he was a tyrant, and he is remembered as such. He died on the grass in 1900, and his son had him disinterred and reburied in Boston in 1911. And there was a huge outcry against this happening, but the British allowed it to take place. Well, going back to his grave, he thoroughly alienated almost everybody in the time, and he began this by invading Guatemala in 1875 to, in his view, bring it to you. The Juarez had fled once before, but they fled this time south again to Cocorregio, New Juarez, and they would not return. And this opened the floodgates. Without that unity and the Asante unity was respected, and you could impose his will and interpret custom properly. Without that, all kinds of conflict broke out in Asante. Adansi against the court, Mampong against the police, etc., etc., etc. And these are covered enormously in Bradley II's book, which you'll be very happy to hear I'm not going to and he, excuse me, and so these conflicts spread throughout the Spanish War. When I was in Tucson, it was mentioned that I had written a book on a Kumasi village between 1850 and 1950. That village is now in Kumasi, it's Adileba, which belongs to the Mandiri School, and in that book, I was able to cite testimonies of people who lived through the Civil War of 1888 were collected in the 1940s. And it was a period of intense deprivation. People starved to death. People were homeless. People were refugees. And meanwhile, the warlords, the Aberdeen, who had asserted themselves against Manchester, descended into a civil war between themselves. The country was in ruins. Kumasi, in the end of the 1880s, was in a terrible condition. An Englishman on his way to Jaman in the Ivory Coast visited it in 1889 and said it was virtually in ruins. It was nothing like the way it was portrayed in the early 19th century by earlier English visitors. And so, Adjutant Bradley came to the school in 1888 amidst these ruins. And he set about repairing the Asante, bringing it back together as best he could. And he had some notable successes. An expedition to Incorampa in 1892 brought the Incorampa back into the fold of the Asante. But of course, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, Adjutant Bradley could do nothing about the British. And so, while he was desperately trying to get the Asante to reunited under its authority, the British came, as I mentioned in the first address, the British came to get them away in 1896. Now, in Bradley II's history, there is an account of the debate that he had with his chiefs about what he was going to do. And he said to them, if we fight, we will all be killed and Asante will be ruined. So I will sacrifice myself as the Asante and go as a prisoner with the British, so that they will not fight here and they will not make the Civil War even worse. So Bradley was taken away with his mother and his father in W off to jail in Albany. And the Asante were not happy with this. They were very unhappy with it. which is why, as I said, that war was in 1901, the Yar and War. Now, it is very difficult to compress and to tell you with any detail, in fact I can't show you, the events of that week in 1883, between 1875 and 1900 was President. They are immensely complex, but certain things need to be noted, even before we begin. Firstly, Brittany has some notable successes. As I said, in Esperanza and with a number of areas around the Command. But he could not stand the kind of disaffection that had been caused by the sheer anarchy of the war and the brutality of British service. Not only that, but now the British will literally seduce dissident authority who were against Brexit, become citizens of the colony, as the Joab had done in 1875, and there they were given both protection and allowed to plot against the assassination of the president. Now, these are a very significant group of people, and the reason is simple. They were the people that the British relied on as collaborators once they had occupied the market again in 1900 and turned into a French colony in 1901. And these people were placed on stools, senior stools, the parental stools and the aboriginal stools, of those who had been deported ultimately to the shell with France. Now there's a long complex history here, so again I'm not going to go into it, but let me simply say this. The first 20 years of British rule are really about getting rid of these calamities. The Assange people themselves would not put up with these. People like Kwame Wachka and Agoda or Kwame Dua of the Jackson School or the British informant for the African Nwama Kwame Dua's brother who was made actually RED by the British. They would not put up with it, and eventually, one way or another, all of these chiefs were removed. But after Brexit came back in 1924, of course, not in any way counted as the over again. That had to wait until 1931 when he was reinstated not as a Sandini, but as ruler of the Master Division, and nothing else. And it's been 4 more years of petitioning, of trying to persuade the president to have the presidency restored. Now, I'm going to finish by talking about the president. The Confederacy that the British restored was restored under the precepts of British justice and British law. The principle was decentralization. They would not, for their own political reasons, accord the authority that the monarchy enjoyed in the colonial period, and they encouraged, if not secession, then forms of independent action by all these armies. And President II spent most of his long reign from 1931 to 1970 when he was operating golf like Gary Willis. He spent most of his long reign trying to restore the oldest one, the Assange's authority, the Assange's arbitration of justice, and these forms of traditional government back in the time. And that struggle, I'm going to name no names, but that struggle, as you all know, everybody in this window, goes on to this day. I will merely mention in conclusion. When I first came here in 1968, Martin had 100,000 people. Now it's got 4.25 million. Where is the land? Well, we know that right now, as I speak, land is the biggest issue in the market. And the Assange has to defend the golden stool's rights in the land in Kumasi, which were taken away by the British and then restored only in part in the 1940s. So, there are still battles to continue, and I hope the battles will be won. Thank you very much.
I shall try to sketch my thoughts around the 18th and 19th century politics. My interests fundamentally will be more focused on Kumasi. One of our sisters, Edwards, who is a PhD candidate from the diaspora, has done something very significant, and I shall use her point on the setting of Kumasi and the palace prior to 1874. The 19th century cosmopolitan city of the Asante in Kumasi was a well-built metropolis and economic center, covering 1 mile north to the south and 3/4 of a mile in width. The monumental and which is the palace of the Asante was located on a hill in the city center, measuring 1,500,000 square feet and covering 34 acres. The east edge of the imperial residence was the sacred Supreme River, a supreme river deity that was at the place where you worship Triangle. Even in were strategically positioned throughout the lush garden landscape of the Asante city, where elaborately Asante designed buildings and residences belonging to royal chiefs and courtiers to the king. The Asante city in the Dumia was not demarcated by walls like the typical imperial cities. The architecture of the noblemen's houses surrounding the residence, the dense forest, and the Subi River formed an invisible defense against invaders. European surveys and religious and diplomatic visitors were in awe of the vast forest landscape and the symbolic aesthetic and technical beauty of the structures as they entered the city. However, the position of the Asante city and surrounding natural and architectural elements was more than what was visible. The imperial metropolis of the Asante was layered with spiritual, cultural, and security values to the nation. Indeed, Kumasi represented the traditional political capital of the forest state of Asante, as well as the residents of the Asante. The Oyoko Royals, all important Kumasi office holders and functionaries, stayed there and performed services associated with the Kumasi court, and their conjugal families resided in Kumasi. Again, it is significant to note that Kumasi was also the cultural capital. In this capacity, the atmosphere of Kumasi was characterized by elegance or sophistication, as initially noted. In fact, in 1874, the British, led by Sir Kenneth Worsley, defeated Asante and ransacked Kumasi. The election of President Affairs as Asante, which began 10 years after the Second World War, was marked by civil war and eventual deportation and exile with key Asante leaders in 1896, first to Sierra Leone and finally to the island of May in Seychelles. British attempts to break Asante and impose their hegemony on Asante did not end with Prempeh's exile. From 1900 to 1901, in the last Asante War of Independence against the British, Asante was defeated and placed under the control of the governor of the Gokis. The British then instituted measures and institutions that started the colonization of Kumasi, which they retained as the capital of Asante. May I, as a point of emphasis, say that when you look at the broader community of society of Kumasi, even though we had the Asante Hene with his mind and his abilities, the society was equally egalitarian, so that you had members of the community from office holders to those who held no office or position. To that extent, we understand that Asante also had different people crisscrossing. In fact, Kumasi historically was opened up to Hausa, Mande traders, and different people from different regions and territories prior to the 18th century and to the 19th century. Kumasi remained an entrepot, so to speak, where different ideas radiated. As a matter of fact, the formation, the founding of Kumasi out of Paman, when the Asante constitution was fully firmed up, gives us a very clear impression about the fact that the Asante Hene and Kwame Frimpong Anoche, Okonfo Anoche, and the eminent chiefs who resided in their specific social and political jurisdiction agreed to that constitution which brought about an Asante Union. An idea that was alien to the European, because the European assumed that the Asante Union came about only through war, and assumed that the Asante Union could be compared to that, for example, of the European kings or monarchs who might have had their territories or spheres through dint of war. As a matter of fact, this constitution, I dare say, and challenge and discussion, ran prior to the Magna Carta. In that respect, its authority was so binding in the sacred stool, the Sida. That spirituality is that which was also missing in the minds of the European in many respects. Asante from Kumasi was interested in diplomacy, and so before even war, there will be diplomatic engagements, there will be discussions, there will be emissaries, and this subsisted since the time of Osei the first Asante Hene. So the critical question, therefore, is to ask, why didn't the British annex Asante after 1874? Just to jump into other discussions. What had changed on the side of the British by 1800? I know the chair is looking at me, I have more time. The 19th century began with, the reign of, Osei Tutu this way. And we understand that there were a lot of interesting dynamics in terms of diplomacy. In fact, his peaceful relations between the British is well documented. In fact, Kumasi in this period received 3 European missions, which included individuals like William Hyde Copper in 1816. Then we have Frederick James, Thomas Edward Bowditch, William Hutchinson, and Henry Tenley in 1817, and Joseph Dupuy, Francis Collins, Benjamin Salmon, and David Mills Graves in 1820. So Kumasi was the heart of diplomacy in the territory referred to as Asante and the broader enclaves that it covered. So that is just one example which suffices to brag. That these diplomatic missions had one goal: to negotiate for peace, to ensure that there was sometimes an uneasy truce between themselves and their neighbors, including the British. So 19th century diplomacy in Kumasi took a rather different form, nature, and approach over a period of time. It was associated with the changing political scene, especially with the growing influence of Europeans at the coast. So diplomacy, which is effectively known in a modern sense, which requires that you have a representation in a territory negotiating for peace among other social, economic, and political dynamics subsisted within Asante. In fact, from about the 1760s onwards, Kumasi had brought, conquest, and received rents from Knust-Great Castle from the Dutch. But beyond this period, we see that the space between the 1800s, there was negotiations, and also there were ideas of war and diplomacy which subsisted. And some of these, reports have been perfectly written and documented by the good professor of erudition, Makasi. Now, the peaceful relations between Asante and the British in the first 2 decades of the century took a different turn. What happened? Why did it take a different turn? Why would Kumasi go to war? We know about Asante interest in that holding at Elmina. We also understand that the interest of the British was to ensure that Asante's control or influence, or better still hegemony, at the coastal regions will be dealt with once and for all. The question is interesting. Why 1874? Why post 1874? And why did the British not annex Asante in 1874? Now, if you look at the account of war and King and the others who have written extensively on that, including Professor Makasi himself, whom I referred to, it's critical to note that it was an expeditious mission. The team with Wesley arrived in the territory referred to as the colony by January, the end of January. Came as far as to Asante by the 1st of January. By the 6th of January, mission accomplished. They returned through Formina, where I come from, signed. The treaty was not signed, it was a treaty he would even leave because he would not sign. The story that I found the ring has already been shared by Professor Makasi. Now, you understand that it was an expeditious mission, they returned hurriedly, and it did not suggest to us that they were there to stay. Secondly, the terms of the agreement itself, or the truce itself, or the treaty itself, also suggest a very interesting thing, because it did not tell us that the British wanted to have an emissary or a resident commissioner in Kumasi and Kodakbaka, Asante. Now, this notwithstanding, you see a disputation, especially when the people writes in a later period and argues that the British were interested in subverting Asante. That is why he argues that they will support Adansi breakaway, they will support the Gabin country, and all the other countries that were emerging within the state. In fact, if you shift towards Kindle's argument, there is a suggestion that the British had a certain vacillatory approach. They will not get into Kumasi and make any intervention, but they will not also come to fight Asante, even if Asante was plundering itself. In many respects, it is this civil war which persisted in Asante, plus the challenging leadership of Takari, among other things, that will lead to the depletion of Asante's resources. Two, you will also find that with the depletion of the resources of Asante, the Asante constitution, which they will help together, the social contract, which by Asante constitution allowed the state to use a subtle coercion to get members of the state to go to war, had won. Leadership challenge with Kakari, the one who followed after him, and also an internecine war, a civil war, which had eaten into the treasury of Asante. In many respects, some have argued that is what will cause Prempeh the first to capitulate. In many respects, I agree in Tutu with my professor with great erudition that through the touch of diplomacy, Prempeh the first would have to save his people from war, because post-1874 and another war just at 1896 would have been too damning and too dangerous for the health and the power of Asante, especially holding it from Kumasi. I will try to just have a minute. So, what is my last take on this one? You would appreciate that by 1900, the British had come to town again. They were successful at that because the rallying call for people to come to fight did not have that kind of zest. And that is written by McCarthy. Asante will regroup, but we see that even when Asante had been defeated, by 1905, Resident Commissioner Fuller had taken over to behave as if he was an Asante Hene. And even when he realized Asante Hene had returned, he made him Kumasi Hene, a creation by the British. The intrigues by the outsiders is what Asante has sought to cure and has found a balancing act to sustain the union till now. I rest my case. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great reverence and gratitude that we gather here today to commemorate the indomitable spirit and unwavering dedication of the people of Asante, who played a pivotal role during the British and Asante War of 1874, popularly referred to as the Sagrenti War. As we delve into the annals of history, we also uncover stories of courage, of compassion, and sacrifice that resonate with the Asante nation. My role in this symposium is to discuss the missionary factor in the Sagrenti War. Many scholars such as Eduwani, Tom McCaskey, Emmanuel Champon, Samuel Bobby, Archbishop Sapon, Rightly, Abel Wicks, and many more have handled this very subject with some level of excellence. I stand on their works to discuss the interest of the Basel missionaries in the war. In the words of Iyoku, the colonial enterprise and the Christian missionary enterprise together constitute two of the most important historical events that have, for good or bad, considerably shaped the history of Africa, including Ghana. Both defining events occurred almost simultaneously. The colonial enterprise focused on the economic and political dimensions of life in Africa, redrawing the boundaries, reshaping its political arrangements and structure, and considerably looking at different orientations and vital institutions. The missionary enterprise impacted heavily on the religious and cultural landscape of Africa and considerably tinkered with its dominant worldview and value system. A critical revisiting of these two major events, either separately or as twin events, is crucial and indeed unavoidable for our understanding of the British Ashanti War of 1874, popularly referred to as the Sagrenti War. Ashanti and Britain fought several wars. Those battles were called several names, such as the Battle of Isamanko in 1824, Akatamanso in 1826, Sagrenti in 1874, and the Asantwa War of 1900 and 1901. Prior to the Sagrenti War, Asante had established itself as a powerful political entity
with a strong religious and cultural infrastructure. In spite of its greatness, it still fought more wars. The frequency with which Ashanti battled with her neighbors, including Nigeria, Fanti, Bono, Ebe, Gan, Gonja, Tagumba, and many more, will have drawn attention to itself by several observers, especially the British and some missionaries. British administrators seem to have arrived at the conclusion that Ashanti indeed was a threat to their colonial project. Historians have indicated that some of the wars that were fought between Britain and Ashanti were in relation to the breach of peace and agreement, and that of 1874 was not an exception. It was born out of the desire to ensure that Ashanti obeys the peace agreement that it was signed in 1863 not to fight the Southern states, and also to end enslavement of people. Achampong, Abba Wilkes, Tudor, Lowen, and several others have indicated that the Ashanti-British War of 1874 had a kind of crushing military defeat on Ashanti. Ashanti got demoralized, and of course the foundation of its very state was shaken. Indeed, the awesome military technology of the British that was deployed was referred to more or less as the total war. Total war because it characterized the sound that was actually coming from the weapons and rifles that were handled by the British. But the question is that if the sagrenti war was a battle between Britain and British forces and Ashanti, what triggered the interest of passing missionaries in the war? The people that were supposed to spread the gospel. To answer this question, we recast our minds to events in early 1868 and again in 1869 when the kingdom of Anglo and Akwamu around the lower Volta declared war on the area of Turkey. In the ensuing war, Ashanti soldiers sacked the people, including Sokode and Nomu, and took along with them missionaries, including Ramsey and his people, Johannes, Kuhn, Smith, Richard, and Pam, Ramsey's men. We might begin to wonder why an internal war would lead to the capture of missionaries. One needs to understand actions and events of this nature from the complex relationship that has developed between society, church, and the state. The Christian church in the Gongos at that time was lumped with other European agencies such as government and trading firms. The church could hardly be considered by the people in the Gongos as an agency with a separate existence. Such was the obvious conclusion to be drawn from missionaries accompanying soldiers on their campaigns and soldiers accompanying missionaries on their mission journeys. There are perfect examples, for example, of Rees, who was accompanied by a soldier up to and from the Danish fort. There is also evidence of free men going to Kumasi accompanied by military officers. As already noted, the first 5 weeks of captivity of Randia and his group saw the captives marching at the daily pace of about 30 miles as they journeyed from Turkey towards Kumasi. This was difficult for European captives who had to walk in the scorching heat from the blazing sun and burning houses. In the process, Ramsey's baby had a fever and pulled a deep wound on his heel from heavy chains. Ramsey's son or child died before the captives got to Kumasi in 1870. Their hope of gaining freedom once they got into Kumasi, as they expected, was yet to be realized. The detention dragged on for more than 4 years. In captivity, Ramsey's wife gave birth to a second child. Attempts were made to release the hostages. David Asante of the Basil Mission, in his letter to the captives, highlighted aspects of ransoming operations that had taken place. I quote, "Twice have we sent messengers to the Ashanti camp offering money for your release, but in vain. I have been sent to Bengal on the frontier of Achin to try and come into communication with you as up to the present. We have only heard of the reports from you. I give the bearer a pencil, paper, and scissors that you may write or send some of your hair as an assurance that you are still alive in Kumasi." With lack of success on the part of the Basel Christian mission, the British colonial administration for Gold Coast, who now had responsibility for preaching, took charge to secure the release of the captives. One of the first decisions taken was waiting to take possession of Ashanti captives on the Gold Coast, including Bofo. I have some water. Bofo's nephew, whom British officers retrieved from Congo in 1869. The plot, it seemed, was to swap captives for the Europeans in the market. Hence, in June 1870, the British governor of Cape Coast, John Coco Hanson, released and sent to Kumasi a batch of Ashanti prisoners seized in a previous Ashanti war around Achin, with a promise to free more of Ashanti captives upon the release of missionaries. That was also not successful. At another time, he sent Ashanti a gold embroidered silk worth about 100 pounds. That also did not help matters. Instead, the demand was for 100 ounces of gold, or about 1,440 pounds for each captive that was being held in Kumasi. To fast forward to 1872, Kakare sent the captives to Promina, south of Asante on the River Pratt. And the message to the British administrator was that 1,000 should be paid to Asante agents and Chicos per captive, so as to finish off the deal. A week later, the captives reached Promina, but before leaving Kumasi, the missionaries had redeemed their two African helpers, that is Palmer and his wife Coco, by paying 6 $3 drawn on the Basel mission account. As the European captain journeyed to the coast, a British force headed in the opposite direction of the Ashanti army. The two armies clashed in 1874. The British forces seized the captives and led them as freedmen to Lagos. It is important to highlight at this stage that the missionary factor played a very significant role in the 1874 war. The capture of the missionaries and the ensuing negotiations allowed the British to plan both in terms of personnel and logistics to be able to launch an attack. Also, the frequent correspondences and spy work and the movement of missionaries such as David Asante enabled enough intelligence report to be gathered on Asante and his forces. Apart from this direct contribution to the war, there were equally important insights that are worthy of note as far as the involvement of missionaries is concerned. The support of missionaries for the war was simply to provide them with a clear form and a direct or indirect way for stability and order in the missionary enterprise in Asante. Since the frequent wars between Asante and the people of the coast proved to be unduly disruptive and even explosive for missionary work. It became evident that after the war, some missionaries, such as Ramsey, had some guaranteed territory for them to be able to carry out their convention works. The interest of missionaries in the war was also due to the intimate relationship between the former end of the transatlantic slave trade and the beginning of the Christian missionary enterprise in the Gold Coast. Even though slavery had been abolished by the British, in several of their evangelisms, they had come across evidence of existence of slavery in most parts of the Gold Coast, including Asante. Missionaries embarked on campaigns to end slavery by arguing that Slaves demand mercy and compassion. In their mission to Ashanti, Sergeant Mosley and his band of fighters projected the world in such grandiloquence so as to gain some sympathy and support from missionaries within the Gurus and also outside of their country. These were actually people that were already exposed to a number of abolitionist proposals. Rather than trade in human beings, humanity will profit more in trading in commodities, they added. For the missionaries giving support in the war, it was more or less an obligation for them to be able to pass on Christian faith to Asante. For the missionaries, the defeat of Asante was construed and seen as a kind of remedy for the slave trade and a civilizing mission. This mindset would be put into action immediately after the war, where Basel missionaries converted ex-slaves, some of whom volunteered to be agents of the propagation of the Christian message and values in the dominions of Asante. The interest of missionaries could further be viewed from the perspective of so-called religious and cultural hegemony. Missionaries had the belief that people of Asante and the Gokot deserve a different doctrinal heritage, especially when Asante religion and culture was seen as an exerting overarching influence and authority over the affairs of many of the missionary operations. Asante has several deities and has no problem with bringing in more. For example, Krachidete, Nana Bubu, and several others were part of Asante kingdom. Beyond their own enduring internal conversions and difficulties, the fear and even dread of Asante religious and cultural practice, religious intolerance was, in this case, a very important factor in the interest of the missionaries as far as the Second War is concerned. The ritual practice and the modes of worship found in the traditional religions was also assumed to be one of the critical factors that made the missionaries to support the sagrenti war. 1 minute. Oh, okay. Thank you. Now, if I have 1 minute, I better move maybe towards my conclusion. Now, in summary, several factors accounted for the missionary interest in the sagrenti war, apart from the capture of Ramsey. The need for space to evangelize, the fear of conversion of Asante kings and other notables into Islam, and its attendant consequences of missionary work. The need to maintain some Christian and cultural hegemony in a kingdom that was highly revered and respected among others, made the Basel missionaries to support British forces against Asante in the Sagrenti war. Thank you so much for that.
His Royal Highness Otunfo II, Nana Nom, the Vice Chancellor, Pro-Vice Chancellor, academics and staff of KNUST, MPs and Ministers of State, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning.
My dear Prof, we are an institution of learning, higher learning, and today gives us the opportunity to learn our culture and history. Let's start with all of them. Royal Majesty.
His Royal Majesty, Nana Otunfo II, Nana Nom, the Vice Chancellor, Pro-Vice Chancellor, academics and staff of KNUST, the MPs and Ministers of State, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's an honor to stand before you this morning to give my thoughts on war and diplomacy, especially from the perspective of women. There is an an Akan proverb which says that Oba Totua Etrebe Made. In 1874, an Elmina-born British envoy, Henry Blanche, made provocative threats to the Asantehene, Kofi Kakari and the chiefs during the discussion of the British takeover of all Dutch concessions, including the Elmina Castle. Obviously irritated by this, the Asantehene Efiakobi retorted, "I am only a woman, but I will fight the governor with my left hand." These two statements mentioned above provokes an inquiry into an understanding of the place of women in Asante state military structure. How do we reconcile the Asante proverb mentioned with the above statements made by Nana Efiakobi? What specific roles did women play in the Asante military setup? In which ways did religious and cultural beliefs hinder women from full participation in state war machinery? The 18th century were times of state union, expansion, consolidation for the Asante, and a constant feature which facilitated this process was war. Asante embarked on wars for political, economic, and ideological purposes. Analyzing the etymology of Asante, linguists equate the name Asante with war. Kwejo Osei, a known historian, gives two traditions to this effect. The first states that Asante emanates from the name Esan, which simply means war. So Asante 4 is the corrupted form of Esaenti 4. The second tradition also states that Asante was a vassal of Dejra, and Asante used to supply Dejra with red clay, which was known as Esan, used for building of houses. The people became known as Asante 4, which was corrupted to become Asante 4. It is essential to iterate here, especially joining into the conversation of David, who states that war essentially elevated men over women. After the Battle of Eliase, Nana Osei the First divided the states politically into different military duties. There was the Adonten, Chafo, Benkum, Nifa, Chidom, Jase, and the Ankobia. All these positions were occupied by men. Though theoretically, the Ohima, that is the co-ruler of the Ohene, could serve as the head of state in the absence of the king. I am then moving on to look at women in the founding of Asante. It is important to highlight the role played by the female ancestors in the founding of Asante. The Oyoko tradition indicates that Anchewenyame and her people descended from the sky near Esiakwa in Achimebuakwa. There is also another tradition which indicates that they descended near Asante Manso. Similar traditions are given by other Matri clans, including Nyankopon Weshia for the Bretu, Aso Bodi for the Asona, Amina Jata for the Asenie, and Sena Fontom for the Ediana. This explains the matrilineal system and why the genealogical descent is traced through the female line. At the core of the socio-political organization was the Abushia, headed by the Abushia Penny and the Oba Penny. The Ohene and Ohima at the highest level of state organization played complementary roles in leadership. The political status was conferred by the Ohima, who also served as the royal genealogist to determine the legitimacy of claims made to any vacant stool. And this accounts for the account proverb, Obana or Ohene. We are moving on then to look at women and war. Women played crucial roles in war politics in Asante. Nevertheless, their roles are largely ignored and underrated due to Asante's religio-cultural beliefs attached to war and gender. It is important to emphasize that childbearing women did not engage in frontline warfare, not because of their physical inadequacies, but because of the fear of menstrual contamination. Menstruation inhibited women's political progression because of the cultural beliefs attached to it. though menstrual blood was considered a source of fertility. Menstruating women were considered ceremonially unclean. They could not attend social activities in the community, participate in religious ceremonies, honor their ancestors, visit the chief's court, or associate with any male government official. Menopausal women, however, were free from these menstrual taboos, enabling them to take part in ritual, social, and political activities. For an Asante menopausal woman, it was significant because it meant a shift from the normal life to become a respectable elder or bapeni. Old women acquired elderly privileges such as the right to cut their hair, the dancing crime, wear their cloth in the male fashion, drink liquor, pour libation, and engage in frontline war. Despite these limitations, women played crucial roles in war in Asante. One of the crucial roles seen is the ritual known as the Mugule. This was a spiritual warfare in which premenopausal and menopausal women performed daily ritual chants, ritual dancing, mimes, and other spiritual performances to enhance the victory of the military in war until the troops returned. These women sometimes pounded empty mortars with pistols as a form of spiritual torture to Asante's enemies. Women also played female captains and the Asafotrema, who were a type of a rear guard. They provided military support services in times such as scouts, carriers, cooks, and provided war logistics. Women provided useful intelligence on strategies and troops of the enemy states. I go ahead to highlight the contribution of three Asante who played very key roles in the history of Asante. These are Efiakobi, Yecha, and then Yasantua. Efiakobi's skill in war and diplomacy is seen in her administrative tact, boldness in the era of crisis in Asante. She was also known as a pacifist and a great woman of great shrewdness, who projected the unification of Asante above the love for war. On 20th November 1873, at the gathering of the Asante Man in Shiemu, she noted to have said, "From olden times, it has been seen that God fights for Asante, if the war is a just one. This one is unjust. I am old now. I lived before Kwekupia, and I have now placed my son on the Asante throne. I do not wish for our ancestors to say my son was the cause of the disturbance of the 60 towns." The council of the military generals superseded hers, leading to the 1874 Sagrenti War with the British, in which Asante was defeated. Nana Kofi Pakari's lack of tact, acumen, and indecision eventually cost him the throne. When Efiakobi found one of Kofi Pakari's wives wearing the gold ornament used to bury the deceased Queen Mother, she initiated his deposition, and in his place, Mensa Bosu was appointed as the Asante King. So this ties in with what Dr. Makasi said earlier, that when he was enthroned, he misused state resources. In this instance, it can be said that she sought to project her self-interest above in the choice of rulers, because for the second time she put her own son on the throne. To secure the election of her younger son, Mensa Bosu, as the next Asante Hene, Nana Efiakobi forged alliances with powerful chiefs, including Bantima Hene Nana Uwa II and Kokofu Hene Nana Yaobek. Nevertheless, her own daughter, Yechan, overthrew and exiled her together with her son, Kakari, in 1884. Efiakobi is remembered for her dedication to maintaining the ascension of her lineage in Asante. I move on then to look at Yechan. Yechan became the greatest rival of Efiakobi as she ousted her own mother in 1884. She was known to be a ruthless ruler. She She secured the arrest of Kakari in 1884 and ordered his execution. Over 200 Kakaris kindred were also eliminated in the process, though eventually he was spared. Unfortunately, Kwakuria II reigned for only 44 days. After his death, Yecha fought for the stool for her son, Prempeh I. Supporters of her opponents, that is, Atrebuana, such as Utuapa, Ochiame, Jobin, and Samahine Echampo Penny were all executed in the process. This led to a prolonged war of 4 years. Within the period, she assumed the role as a rival ruler of Asante and took possession of the golden stool so that no opponent could be enthroned. In Asante norms and value systems, the accumulation of wealth played a key role in power struggle. Yecha was a wealthy trader who used her money to finance the ambitions of her children. As a non-wealthy woman, Yecha deployed her resources liberally. It was known that she bought loyalty using land. She also acquired a large supply of Snyder rifles and ammunition to aid her self-ambition. As a result, she was given the title Oba Berima. Yecha remained resolutely opposed to British diplomatic missions, including Griffin, Hodgson, and Maxwell. This explains why she was targeted for exile together with Prempeh I and other prominent chiefs in 1896. She died in Seychelles on 2nd September 1917 at the age of 77. I move on to the last heroine in terms of Asante history, that is Yasantua. Yasantua was a formidable-looking woman who had the slogan, "Men are not pillows for any woman to lean against." Yasantua played a pivotal role in galvanizing the Asante into action by challenging male impotency in a time of national crisis. Echampo and Obey emphasized that her devotion to the golden stool, determination and courage contributed to making the war against the British. When her grandson, Nana Kwesi Afrani was exiled, together with Prempeh I, by the British, she openly challenged the demands made by Sir Frederick Hodgson for the golden stool. Her devotion for the golden stool and determination contributed to the siege and guerrilla war from April to November 1900. This contributed to her famous statement, "How can a proud and brave people like the Asante sit back and look whilst the white men took away the king and the chiefs and humiliated them with a demand for the golden stool? The golden stool only means money to the white man. They have searched and dug everywhere for it. I shall not pay 1 rand to the governor. If you, the chiefs of Asante, are going to behave like cowards and not fight, you should exchange your loincloths for my undergarments." For the sake of time, I'll move on to my conclusion. Within the broader framework of gender and power relations in Asante, women are highly recognized for their roles played in the continuity of their lineages. Because of the matrilineal structure of the Asante people, which centers on the idea that the woman passes her blood to her offspring, this bestows on women recognized political rights. Several queen mothers did not limit their responsibilities to women and domestic affairs, but played crucial roles to enhance national sovereignty. These queen mothers highlighted, defied gender stereotyping to shape Asante social and political institutions and improve the capability of women despite the religio-cultural ascribed biological limitations as compared to men. In conclusion, while women served limited roles in Asante Army, due to customary disqualifications and the fear of menstrual taboos. Upon reaching menopause, they assumed war politics together with men. As we celebrate the 150 years since the Sagrenti War occurred, it is important that we remember heroines of history, including Efiapoli, Ya Echa, and Ya Asantua. I guess I will lastly play the devil's advocate here, in probing the unsung stories of women. I wonder what the story would have been if these women had told their own stories. Had Ya Santua or Ya Echa been elected or Western school, and had they similar avenues as Nana Ajiman I while in exile, what stories would they have written about women in war? This leaves much to be desired. And I'll end by saying that as women, it befalls on us to go ahead and
Thank you all very much. I've received royal instructions that we should end the panel discussion at 1 p.m. That's why I was sending all these timekeeping instructions. So unfortunately, though I had promised Q&A, we will not be able to do Q&A. I beg for indulgence for just 2 or 3 minutes to offer some concluding remarks like academic protocol requires, and then we'll thank our panelists and close us. We've had a wonderful couple of hours, beginning with Tom McCarthy's keynote. We've heard about the personal ambitions of individuals, someone like Garnet Wolfe, who was intent on leading the British Army, and the kinds of actions he would take because of his personal ambitions. We've heard of personal predilections, the 2 brothers, Kuvika Kari and Sabodi, and the consequences of some of these predilections. We've heard about the importance of timing, the 1870 sagrenti, and how the outcome was almost guaranteed because of British industrial and religious superiority. In a sense, it was an unfair war. The timing of the 1880s, the scramble and the petition, will make the difference between 1874, Asante is defeated but not annexed, and the insistence in the 1890s that Asante should come under British suzerainty. So timing is important. War, we've talked about 2 wars, Sagrenti, Ya Santua, but with very different consequences. 1874, Asante is defeated but not annexed. 1900 enabled the British to treat Asante differently from even 1896. Now Asante was a territory of conquest. We cannot talk about Asante today without Christianity. Despite the rather ambivalent beginnings of Asante's relation with Christianity. I looked at Kumasi today, and almost churches are part of the landscape. I think St. Cyprian's is the Anglican church, right? Which is also the Royal Church. Even Ramsia has a church named after him, which is the one in the room that my mother went to. There's Wellesley, or the Methodist Church, by the prisons. And you have to climb the hill to the Roman hill, to the Roman Church. And it is true that the Asante have today indigenized Christianity, as Archbishop Osisafo affirms. Women are half the population, and we cannot go anywhere without our women. And I've enjoyed listening to Eugenia's reflections on 3 important pre-marriage, Efiapoli, Yecha, and then Yusuf Emayas. So this silver anniversary is a period of historical reflection and the capacity of history to rejuvenate Asante. Titikasu, as Anaka reminded us, and the Asante love history. Please join me in thanking our 4 excellent panelists for their service. At this time, we'll take our seats so we can go back to our seats, and then Mr. Jerry behind you will take a break here.
What shall we say to Prof. Tom McCaskey, Professor Eugene Anderson, Professor Samuel Eugene, Professor Samuel Itabusu, and the masterful moderation of Professor Emmanuel Champon, please, for the sounding round of applause. We want to thank you so much for lending us your mental agilities and fleshing out this book from various perspectives. Let's now go back to 1874, February. Like Dr. Maumia would say, you and I were not. But the gods, ancestors, and spirits live in all of us. And for the next few minutes, I want you to lend very undivided attention to the Kumasi Cultural Center as they reenact February 18th.
Sagrenti culture center for and a better service so actually your choice the fellow rural Emmanuel Jiwopipra Mesa what is that actually without any fancy for
and he was the state manager for this production. And it is our hope that in the future, actually this performance is 2-hour performance, but for this occasion, we have updated it to 45 minutes. And this production is brought to you by the Municipal Center, as he said, and made possible through the concerted efforts of some individuals, including the Director of the Municipal Center, Mr. Marco, and Professor and the student from the National Design Festival. On this production, students, British nationals, and have to report some of them. So thank you and enjoy the show.
Following the Euro-African War, 1826, also known as the Dodo War or Akata. The British and the Ashantis signed the Anglo-Ashanti Peace Treaty of 1831 at Cape Coast Castle. This treaty empowered the British to create the British protected territories on the lands across the River Track. By 1872, the Danes and the Dutch forts and castles to the British and left. These lands became protected from any Asante control or encroachment. The British protected territories of the surrounding states, including Asin, Wasa, Fante, Dentra, Akamu, Ga, Atangwe, and many others supported the British, serving as their informants. As we saw European power on the coast, the British fomented the war against the Asantes. And this is how it all began.
Yura, Nancy, Yesia, the way you did. Hey, Adaroma, said you on my you. What do you want to jam now, Maria? It's not Danny, it's an my sir.
Very important. Mama Classic. I'm not the last one. I'll say that. And I don't there. Was never right. Things that are when I say. No.
I'm not there. My man can't tell. Sabi, someone, I don't know who you are. Yet, you have a prayer. The good you are now, I will catch up. I will tell my son, answer right.
What right? Well, now, maybe in that, I'm going to all one. What's that? I'm going to be a robot. You do know, man.
No. It moves out of running. Papa be in it. Let me go to I think you're the baby. Let's see.
Yeah, you can tell them to say, don't be
there are some chiefs here in the coastal area, and they would like to see you. They have said they want to discuss official matters with you.
All right. Let them come in.
My lord, the kids from the coastal areas. And I don't, then I'm not seeing on my part.
Yeah, right.
I pay so, also with some panel.
I'm not of that thing.
What?
So, you put on a body. What? Me are chimney. Me so, I am Pantini. And I also say that. But I one month, a panama young to be mechanic. You lost. Yeah, some titty as I become. You hear, sir. I'm not. You who is someone pack and the money and not my own one. Let us yet be a beer. One more as a military of free. And one would be at the papa and the money. I'm not woman. Yes, sir, do. Say, or the way I buy a dear. Said yesterday, carriage. Let me ask for the beer. Do that. But another was funny. I'm not looking at it. You have to another yesterday said. I asked before. Yeah, the number I actually said. Almost my son, yeah, the man who got young. So we're home. If we start at the phone, you put me there. You're not a just as you are. So I don't know how to act. And just say, oh, my body. Yes, sir.
My lord, what they are saying is that they want to be your informant. And also, they will give you any secret, anything about their country. In return, they seek for your protection. Wonderful! Yes, my lord. What's the walk?
That's it. Whatever you know about power.
Hey, madam. But let's walk.
naked. The Ashanti are claiming this territory. They are powerful people, warlike people. We have to stop them from claiming the enemy territory. See, in all my administration in West Africa, I have not seen people this radical, rebellious, and recalcitrant as these Ashantis. Struck them from one angle, and they assemble one another. We have to end everything by any means necessary.
There must be a connection, that's right.
But I thought after so many years of humiliation, they would learn a lesson. I will break their resistance, whether they like it or not.
Governor, the history of these people is full of battle.
See, I received this letter from Her Majesty, the Queen of England. And this is the present situation back in England.
Oh, the London Bridge is falling!
Indeed! I don't like the Ashantis. Their war must go on. General Wolseley, what are the preparations so far?
Governor, for this war will bring with heavy armaments and spy rifles. For the first time, we're going to strongly defeat and destroy the Ashanti Empire. Because Ashantis are powerful and are mighty in battle. We're training ourselves together. We're going to introduce Grenade to help the soldiers and introduce the new machine guns with a significant technological advantage over the Ashanti army.
Hold on, General. Please follow me into the inner chamber.
It was Thursday on 7:30 a.m. as the British had already threatened the Asante Kingdom. Nana Amankwetiya III and some notable Asante chiefs were the Asante warriors in the thick at Kafo. The British had indeed decided to fight the after a peace led by the Asante. The Asantes tried to resist the oppressor. Asante was the only kingdom that prevented the British from taking their lands. Then, the Blue Moon, Sir Donald falsely arrived in the Asante Empire with over 25,000 troops and thousands West Indian and African troops, including dancers. by the places with explosives. The harm has already been caused. And it is only time can wipe off memories of this invasion. The British took away cherished treasures, including rolls of books, and as well as the headgear of Nana Kofi Kakere, except the golden stool, Mr. Esikega. The harm has already been caused. And it is only time that can wipe off this memory. How can we forget the death of our war general, Nana Mankwetia, and some notable chiefs in the hands of the British? How can we forget the death of thousands of people and the agonies of those left behind? How can we forget that worked profusely on that faith? How can we forget the treasures that were looted away? But this change with the passage of time. Now Kumasi wrote several British citizens and London houses several Asante citizens. The city said that was thought to destroy. It's now the repository of Ghana's culture, and hundreds of British nationals, quite ironically, talk in it every year to seek the remnants of the very thing they seek to destroy or carry away. The British brought their cannon to the bush, but the bush was stronger than the cannon. Asante was born in battle, nurtured in battle, and sustained in battle. Today, as a 12th kingdom, we learn from our defeats and also celebrate our victories. And this is what will forever make the Asante kingdom powerful and mightier. Long live the king of the Asante, His Royal Majesty Otumfuo Osei-Tutu. Long live the kingdom.
Naturally, this should exude animation. I don't have to ask for it.
Dr. Massive Cultural Center, let's appreciate your effort, your brilliance in reenacting this great war, this great war.
standing, Your Lordship the Chair, Your Royal Majesty, humbly I ask that together let us pay tribute to all our men and women who lost their lives in this great war. For they are a part of an unbroken line of heroes who have borne the heaviest burden of the freedoms we enjoy today. A minute's silence. It's our prayer that the blood, sweat, tears, and toil of our heroes past shall never be in vain. We ask that their souls rest in glory. Amen.
A sounding round of applause to celebrate.
We're joined today by the Amwafuman Hima, the queen of the area where this great battle was fought, and then we are the free word. She joins us with the good news. This reenactment that you've seen has been put together by way of a very well-curated exhibition depicting the war and its display at the We ask that you all make your way there at your convenience, together with your families, as we relive this experience. A round of applause for them too. To launch this book is a man who is in the battle of his life as significant as the Sagrenti War. His is to be youth for this generation, generations yet to come, an education and an educational system that is functional and fit for purpose. Or something we know he will win. I give to you the MP for Busuki, a proud political champion and Ghana's Minister of Education, Dr. Yao Hossein.
Chairman of this commission, immediate past Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana, Chairman of the Planning Committee, Anojo Sriwo II, Vice Chancellor of the Minister, Mayor of Kumasi, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's indeed an honor Your Royal Majesty, the last time I had a one-on-one meeting with you, I went home and told my mom that I went to keep and she started jubilating. Yay, me back XL24. So if my mom was alive today, I think she was a senior on TV who said, hey, and then she would have said, today my son is launching a book written by for me, the MC mentioned and fight another sagrenti wall to bring about but what we seek to do is to ensure that we transform the education system of this nation to ensure we transform the socio-economic institutions of our nation. This is a very fat book even for education minister to read. So I went through some pages, very exciting. In fact, once you start reading, you can't stop. It's filling in the gaps for us, even for those of us who have studied history. All the things that I'm talking about, you're going to find the gaps filled for you. The book is a concise autobiography of the author, overseeing an industrial research committee of 9, which included the likes of Berryman Koyogo Ushiansa, CEO, JWK, Hiniba Watida, George Asaf Eje, Chiane Bafo Akutu. The work started in 1939. Let's attend the another local intellectual. Later added to the research team to prepare the script between 1944 and 1946. Taking until more than half a century, hard work and dedication of notable historians like Professor Dubois, Professor Emmanuel Champion, Professor Makisi, coupled with the other support of the 24th century to discover and compile the original writings and attachments for finally producing Professor Abraham gives an account of the events preceding his birth when the leopard appeared in Kumasi 3 days before he was born. This ended the name Bakuchichi. His other names were sagrenti or sanctity, as he was known after his baptism into the Brazilian Methodist Church in 1911. It was called This publication on the history of Ashanti transcends this famous Ashanti saying, the truth is not known to us all. The first was educated Ashanti. He placed much emphasis on education as the bedrock to national development and advancement. As a young adolescent, Osakwama came to realize that literacy, numeracy, financial and domestic education were indispensable keys to survival and future prosperity. This was before the Sustainable Development Goals Declaration by the United Nations.
And he concludes with a brief note of his reign, the inspiration of that Asante conspiracy, the 3rd January 1935, when he proclaimed to Asanteman that unity is strength. There have been many writings about Asante history, and the history of Asante to the first said the second is the most comprehensive and definitive history of the Asante kings, the people of Asanteman, their dealings with their neighbors, pre-colonial gold, coast, and European colonials. Students of literature, history, and the arts will find in the history of Asante a wealth of material to enrich their knowledge. To also stimulate research, to enrich this volume. This is a must read for all and sundry, and should find its way into every house, library, education, institutions, and bookstores. Before said Admiral Robert Second, consider this publication his greatest wish, and is now displayed for us. To get hold, or rather, to endeavor to get hold of a copy of this book. See, as I was reading and going through pages, I shared that serendipity and opening page 81. Here it was. Story reads, talks about he was a member of the Assyrian family, and he went to report to Akuseya Amekobi that he was of the same family as he was, and that he had moved himself from his original town to settle at Odahu. Akuseya now accepted him warmly as a relative and lived happily with him. The real one, used to visit Odahu and then returned happily to Ameko. He was a medical man and possessed many efficacious medicines. He was referred to as a black woman who lived at Odahu. This was the reason that there is now a town called Ebuaben. My grandparents are from Ebuaben, and from there, they moved to Jati. So today, after reading the book, I come to know more about why the town is called Ebuaben. Pages of this book today also be something about the family, about the inheritance, about hope, about aspirations, about loyalty and commitment to a cause bigger than yourself, about patriotism individuals who are willing to pay the ultimate price so that their kingdom will survive. This is a book which is a must read, teaches us many lessons as to how to dedicate yourself to making your kingdom better than you came to find it. There are men and women who have done so many things. I saw stories of commitment, stories of promises made and promises kept, to the extent that a woman who asked that when she passes on, her name should be remembered after she had given up her son. Otunfo then made a commitment to her, and consequently, Otunfo and the subsequent Otunfos made their children after this woman. Promises made, promises kept. Here is the story of a kingdom that has stood the test of time. Kingdom that has contributed so much. So much humanity, a kingdom that we have to learn from in order to create a better world, a better nation. 2-4-3-2-2. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for allowing me to do this. It is my prayer that all of us will make copies of this book. It's also my prayer that other authors of children's books will begin to take these books and write children's versions of them, so that our children will
Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Yao, respectfully, I'll have to invite you back to do a remedial. This is where you officially declare this historic. Please, a round of applause.
Also for your Royal Majesty, the King and for permission, I declare the book, issue of Ashanti, by Otumfuo was saying Adjutant Premier Decision, duly launched.
And so the Honourable Minister presents the first copy to His Royal Majesty Otumfuo Osei Tutu II, Asante Hene. A round of applause. Wow. Thank you for launching this great performance. Time is fast spent, and so we move straight into the auction. It is my pleasure to invite, to assist me, my very own sister from Yoruba TV, make welcome and Pia Esikwa. What we want to do for the next 15 minutes is a very simple exercise. We have a total of 150 books. 30 have been signed, being personally signed by His Royal Majesty Otumfuo Osei Tutu II. We want those 30 to be out of here in 5 minutes. We want somebody who is touched. To make us an offer. We have a few offers. Allow me to just share with you, and if you're moved to believe that, pleased. We acknowledge with gratitude the contribution of Dr. Nana KGC, who has given 100,000 Ghana cedis toward the symposium and the book. A round of applause. But if you think that is too big, then wait till you hear from Sime Construction Limited, who say, touched by this great work, they are giving 150,000 Ghana cedis. And so it's official, we have 23 left for grabs, personally signed by His Royal Majesty Otumfuo Osei Tutu II. If you are one of the 5 people who want to get this at a very good offer, I will give you a certificate. I will give you 4 tickets per person to attend Otumfuo's birthday dinner. It's a good deal. Yourself and 4 additional people. Who is making me an offer? We have 100, we have 150. Anybody making an offer? Today we want to discourage pledges, no pledges. We insist on checks and cash and transfers. And so we have account details to spell out also. And so, Ghana's Minister for Energy is doubling all of this, 200,000 Ghana cedis. A copy of the book for him, a certificate, and 4 tickets.
Otumfo or say to two have a person you know, probably if you are started to talk about it. What my hair or not, or any still needing a salary. Never know. My assault for Russian for Abaya catching penny for a man and mamma, and in Yamina, yes, and then. Maybe he said, and then I have got some MIA so or every so. Now, and something and I'm going to carry a Canada. Maybe this cow won't maybe carry Cassano, no material to my Canny. Yes, said as Santa Maya, yes, said as Santa for like a Cassano, young Momoa. Nobody said to be a young chicken. Maybe a Bema, Jerry, I get the money to be one. Now, maybe the outcome they become one. A Minister, at the good native, I'm not really kind of your church and share or your woman said, you have to talk of his name, 150,000 in the airport and only more. Miss William the name battle, and the battle for second and number of every penny now, so we are the who come out, who talk to a hill fear, who come out, woman and unknown, and that you will cry. Your woman is one, not a come back for 7. Yanni and she and kind and you're quiet and I get Sunday, about 7 and Mira, not a minister Sunday, before the take a man brand free tears of follow. A queen, a city few 150 years, and so then they come to they are put you on only making coffee white. Now, yes, sir, and you'll be a wire, yes, sir, when I know what they are, that you copy, not your way. Yabaya, Yaba, Shabu, Yazama, who come another lawyer. What is an old message in a no? Maybe didn't make some people who didn't tell them, maybe one who didn't was so wild. There was so more than I would have poor Santa Maria and Santa Maria. So much intimacy and no for an adwa pete. Listen, more for the big man and I
And so we have 2 more contributions coming through from Dr. Ernest Kurisapu, specialized. He gives 100,000 Ghana cedis. And you know that he's not alone because his brother, Osei Kwame Despite, also joins with 100,000 Ghana cedis. A round of applause. We want to come down to the level of everybody, and so we ask that 50,000 and above. 50,000 and above. Your bank for life, GCB, 70 years of unparalleled banking solutions to Ghana. 50,000 Ghana cedis, a round of applause. And you have a certificate, you have tickets to attend the Tupo's birthday dinner. Unij Fashion, 100,000 cedis. And Isaac Books, 150,000 Ghana cedis. A round of applause for them. Your Royal Majesty 224. subject, 1990. 1990 are giving 100,000 Ghana cedis. A round of applause for them. Newmont Africa, 15,000 Ghana cedis. A round of applause for them. Calban, 15,000 Ghana cedis. A round of applause. For my brothers and sisters, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we want to make this very simple. If you have an offer, please proceed. We'll allow you to make the offer known to the king in your own words. And then you proceed, you take the book and take a bow in front of the king. Is that agreeable? Okay. So Fidelity Bank is joining us with 50,000 Ghana cedis. Nana Batsuma Hene, Nana Mapitia joins us with 50,000 Ghana cedis. A round of applause. The regional minister, the Honorable Simon Osei-Mensah, joins us also with 50,000 Ghana cedis. MP for Tano North and Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources, the Honorable Dr. Frida Prempe, 50,000 Ghana cedis. Dr. Fred Shea Asanwa, the CEO of Corvet and parliamentary candidate for Offenso, joins us with 50,000 Ghana cedis.
Fidelity Bank Ghana, 50,000 cedis.
By the kind permission of the Lordship of the Chair, we come down to 20,000 cedis and above. 20,000 cedis and above. 20,000 cedis and above. He did not only launch the book, he came with a very handsome offer of 100,000 Ghana cedis. Ghana's Minister for Education, the Honorable Dr. Yao Osei-Mensah. Please, a round of applause. Thomas Kwesi Sapong, Executive Head at Calban, 20,000 Ghana cedis. We say thank you. The Glyco Group,
The Glyco Group and the Champonche family join us with 20,000 Ghana cedis. A round of applause for them too. Nana Mansour Kwantahene joins us with 50,000 Ghana cedis. A round of applause. The Mayor of Kumasi, the Honorable Sampai, 20,000 Ghana cedis. Mr. Isaac Comey, the Deputy CEO of the Architectural and Engineering Services Limited, joins us on behalf of his organization with 20,000 Ghana cedis. Thank you ever so much. It gets better because Otumfos and Oswahene joins us with $4,000 US. What's the symbol? The Zonzo from Oswahene joins us with 50,000 Ghana cedis. A round of applause. Ambassador Edward Kwati joins us with 20,000 Ghana cedis. And our very own voice of God in the city of Kumasi, Pastor Ransford Obey of CCC, 20,000 Ghana cedis. In the spirit of inclusion, we come down to 10,000 cedis and above. 10,000 cedis and above. Coa Research and Manufacturing Company Limited, Kumasi branch, 10,000 Ghana cedis. Nana Domi Abrahimi joins us with 30,000 Ghana cedis.
Dr. Beku obtained Angel Group 100,000 cedis. Dr. Beku obtained Angel Group 100,000 cedis.
Republic Bank joins us with 10,000 Ghana cedis. So does Sonia Rotterman also join us with 10,000 Ghana cedis.
Nana no mepa mo cho. Nana Jamala Kenten I want to see you official my 30,000 cedis. Nana Jamala Kenten I want to see you official my 30,000 cedis.
ANC, Dr. Andrea Samoa, 50,000 Ghana cedis. A round of applause. Telephone number, follow up, send your certificate to know, we submit to me, and then you may walk on see the mouth. Now, to the market, I'm trying to show so. Obi, I want to be out with Jessica. You know, it's wrong, or only something who's so tempting, so I get through now, certificate so get the amount. Dear Kita me free, I can tell you, I'm University, Professor F.K. Safi, and one of Professor Safi, so by 10,000 cedis. I can tell you, I'm University, Amsterdam, Professor Safi, 10,000 cedis. From the Ghana Communication Technology University, the Vice Chancellor, who is the Fia President, Professor Emmanuel Ohene Afuakwa, 10,000 Ghana cedis. A round of applause for them. From the SRC Secretariat of the KNUST, 10,000 Ghana cedis. A round of applause for them too.
Nana Wachi and Sunday Brand, as a very Nana Wachi and Sunday Brand, 10,000 cedis. Nana Wachi and Sunday Brand, as a very 10,000 cedis.
See, me the young crop of Rani, unfortunately, some may be a few of us. We group in a year, and I much home book. To meet the paper culture, so now we don't be able.
And so, for what it's worth, the leadership of Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology is committing 50,000 Ghana cedis for 5 books to be put in their libraries. A round of applause for the KNUST.
And
Yeah, my pets the front page. Amasano. Now go. Which year, sir? Let's go there.
The second, and yes, so one name. And yes, so one name. Joins us with 10,000 currencies.
Which picture? Which one? And you
So let's end by answer we all want to have together. And I ask that we all our members at the table, I ask that we all at the end of this event, we have more books coming through. The table will still be open for more orders. Sebastian na yes nasi. Sebastian nasi. We are just about wrapping up these seated. Sebastian nasi. Yadamasi. Mepacho bien, c'est table 4. Mepacho, let's cease all activity at the table, please. I ask that we all take our seats. The table will be reopened at the end of the event, please. Mepacho, let's all be seated. Okay, I ask that we all be seated. Mepacho bien nasi. Mepacho bien nasi. Bien fait, tu m'as nommé hier. Hier soir. Il veut bien dire pour nous. Cashiers at the table, please cease operation, please. Let's honor our king, please. Me patron activity bi a ɛwɔ table no gya sisi a ɛbantɔ. Patron biara tena ase, yɛda mo ase. Me patron biara tena ase, biara tena ase. Biara tena ase, yɛwia yɛbɛkɔ contributions no, but sisi a biara tena ase. It's time to hear from our chairperson of the occasion. However, allow me to acknowledge the contributions of Adansehene Nana Onsra Efriye II for his generous contribution of 10,000 Ghana cedis. In the same vein, the Sumoja Hene Odinemu Otsere Kusi Ntrapa also joins us with 20,000 Ghana cedis. Joseph Construction have been generous today and they've given 15,000 Ghana cedis. A round of applause for them all.
Nana Yengro Osei, Asantia Yengro, Nana Yengro Osei, 10,000 cedis. Sarah so and I, young grad, free Nana Takamai support, and also 10,000 cedis. And I did one another Angela Takamai 10,000 cedis. Nana de Trasema, 5,000 cedis. Nana Himaya, Himaya Nana, points in my. Nana Amo, any or him, 5,000 cedis. Nana Amo, any him, 5,000 cedis. Nana Amo, Nana Bekaya for me, and then 5,000 cedis. Nana Bekaya for me, and then 5,000 cedis. Nana Bekaya 5,000 cedis. Nana Bekaya 5,000 cedis. Nana Ejosohima, and then Ejosohine, 5,000 cedis. Nana Ejosohima, and then Ejosohine, 5,000 cedis. Yet Nana has Nana Denya say, and so 5,000 cedis. Yet Nana and then
Achamfo, Asafo, Wache, Ajiman Bonsu, 20,000 Ghana cedis. Asafo Yetawasi. Safsuna, Mahama Ba, and Yakufadu Ba, Yana Yakwabna Yame, aka Apia Stadium. Why are you 10,000 Ghana cedis? Why are you Yo, Yo, shortly we hear from our chairperson. We must hang the I'm just in the way here. That's it. We shall now hear from the chairperson for this auspicious occasion. I ask that we receive with joy His Lordship, Justice Kwesi Eni Yeboah.
Yes, Royal Majesty, the chairman of the planning committee, and now I'm just what is simply just please for the fact that we are far behind time, may I respectfully plead that I stand on the existing protocol. My duty at this time is to make some remarks about what the contributors offered us in the course of the symposium. Starting with Professor Makaski, I must confess that this is the first time I have met somebody outside the jurisdiction who appeared to have unearthed everything about the Ashanti history. Prof, we are very, very indebted for your invaluable contribution. Yes. In fact, you went to town. You got to tell us how the war started, how it ended, and the aftermath of the war. And the fact that they came purposely, some came, especially Sir Wesley, he came just to enhance his ambition to become the commander of the British Army or whatever. And under the guise of spoils of war, everything that they found was looted. And you even suggested that the Ashanti should take the immediate steps to seek for the return of some of these gold ornaments which are still in the British museums as evidence taken from the shores of Ghana. Then we came to Professor Edudemfi. He limited himself to the Kumasi as it then was at the time of the war. And that, according to him, it was an egalitarian sort of society. And after the deportation of Pepe I, the Ashantis had to come to terms with the situation. And that there is a clear misconception on the part of the authors of the Ashanti history in Europe, who thought that the Ashanti Empire spread through conquest. And you made it clear that they adopted the constitution to make the Ashanti nation a confederacy of some sort. And I think all of us drew lessons from it, because personally I was under the misconception that indeed it was through conquest that the empire spread. Now we have to acknowledge your contribution to this area of the history, which has never come to the fore. And you also talk of diplomacy, which promoted the growth of the Ashantis in the 19th century. Then came the Sagrenti War, and according to you, it was just an expeditionary force because they did not come to stay in Kumasi or any part of the Ashanti region. And after the war, they just entered into the treaty and then left till they came back in 1896 to take Otunfo Pepe I away to Seychelles. We are also acknowledging what the church speaker, Professor Jones, also discussed. He came to let us know about the role the missionaries played in the conquest of Ashanti. And that the missionaries were, some of them were indeed spies for the British Empire. And that when they captured some of them and brought them to Kumasi in captivity, yes, they were there for some time, and there were negotiations for them to be released to also get the Ashanti captives in the coast, also released to the Ashantis. And he did mention the name of Ramsey, which name still resonates in the ears of every Ashanti, especially those in in the Presbyterian mission. Then he also came to the fact that after that, the war against the Ashanti became easier because the missionaries themselves were aligned to the British forces to get access to the information in which they can come to have an easy task of destroying the Ashanti Empire. We are also heavily indebted to the last speaker, Virginia Anderson. She dwelt on the specific roles of women in the Ashanti Kingdom, and she went forward to mention the three famous names, and I will come down to it. He started to trace the succession in the Ashanti Kingdom through females, and that he said that even in water, they also have specific roles to play, but they have not been acknowledged by the writers. And she is a historian, and I think she has done an in-depth research and has come to recognize that some of them stayed behind, some of them were also at the forefront, carrying munitions and the rest to provide support services for the military. And he also did say something about the fact that those men, when at that time were in their menstrual periods, they were seen as a taboo, especially in performance of certain traditional duties, and that those who had passed the who had their menopause were playing active roles and could perform several services in which the others had been denied. Indeed, he mentioned the name of Yacha as the greatest, one of the greatest queen mothers of the Ashanti Kingdom, and then Yasantiwa and Efuakuni as the renowned queen mothers of the Ashanti. And indeed, she quoted his, what Yasantiwa said, that men are not heroes for anybody to live against. And that it was Yasantiwa whose allegiance to the golden stool marshaled all the forces, and for the first time in the history of Ashanti, the expedition to go and fight the British was led by her. And with that, we've come to the end of it. I think we have we've learned so much from all the various speakers. Some of us are better off. Indeed, we've been scratching history till today, that we be taught how everything started and ended, and that all of them concluded that after the war, Ashantis came back to get united, and now we are seeing that the time has come for us to have this 150th anniversary as a Remembrance Day to commemorate whatever went wrong in the history of Ashanti. With that, I take this opportunity to thank the various speakers for what you've done. And on behalf of myself, for the friendly committee, we are very, very grateful. We are heavily indebted for your contribution to the Ashanti history. And posterity will certainly reward you. Thank you very much.
His Lordship, Justice Kwesi Nene-Nyambua, immediate past Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana. Please help me thank him. Thank you, Your Lordship, the Chair, for chairing this auspicious occasion for us. In bringing this celebration to a close, it will be remiss of me not to acknowledge the untiring efforts of the woman, two women as a matter of fact. The first happens to be the first university graduate from her village at Santi Achem Domiabra. It has pleased God that today her efforts as the publisher of this book gets the attention of His Majesty the King. Make welcome Madame Akos Ofori Mensah, the CEO of Sub-Saharan Publishers. Mommy, I invite you to take a bow before the King. Please, a round of applause. She's accompanied by Osei Mensah Michael, the elected president of the Ghanaian community in France, and together with the head of their family, they make a contribution of 5,000 cedis in spite of being the publishers. Please, a round of applause. And all this history has been passed down because our mothers kept the oral tradition. I'm delighted to present to you, Your Majesty, a woman who placed second in the regional contest on Asante history in the high schools back in 2003. Today, she serves as the coordinator for the NALEP Battlefront Tafu Bankrono with pride. Make welcome Dr. Sewa Donko Louisa. A round of applause for her. Doc, where are you? She's hidden somewhere. Okay. And so shortly we shall bring this celebration to a close. To say thank you is a man who is grateful for the gift of today, because in his lifetime he has seen honor bestowed to his beloved father. Make welcome a son of the Asante Hene, Otumfuos Akonfre Hene, Nana Akwesi Adenyi.
Your Majesty, a Jack, who do for saying to the secret, something. I'm well pleased. That's the bread. Just about the secret. And I'm going to check the plan. My Lord Chief Justice, I couldn't call the Chief Justice, because how the Chief Justice? You're always the Chief Justice. My Lord Chief Justice, I need your word. Vice Chancellor, Regional Minister, Professor Tom McCarthy, Professor Chauko, and the rest of the panel. Madam, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor for me as a son of the two forces outside my ministry to be given the honor to give the vote of thanks for such an auspicious occasion. But fortunately for me, the Lord Chief Justice has done my work for me by literally summing up what each one of the panelists said. So I sat down quietly and said, what then should I do? And I said, so I'll be so this morning. Not many people will go away knowing who my father or two forces outside my prayer was. So the question is, who was the two forces outside my prayer? Who was he? He was the 14th Asante. He was born in 1892, 4 years before his uncle, Nana Ajibampe, was exiled to the Seychelles side. Therefore, he could not have known or seen much of his uncle before he was exiled. But amazing, the numbers 39 and 78 form a bigger part of his life. At the age of 39, he became Asante in 1851. 39 years later, he died as Asante.
at the age of 78. Now, we are told in this book that the book started in 1939 and got completed around about 1946, which means here we are in 2024, from 1946, exactly 17 years. So 39 years before he became king, 39 years on the throne, he died. It's taking 78 years for a book that he published, that he wrote, or supervised to be published. Those of us who were privileged to be his children, and he had 21 of us, 11 male and 10 female. By the time of his death, each one of us was alive. Each one of his 21 children was alive by the time he died. Now, as I speak to you, we have become an endangered species, with only 4 male and 3 female surviving. His predecessors, as history has told us, went to war. Asante being in the center of this land, some of his predecessors fought to the north, like the Sekoduko India, he fought to the north, and some fought to the south, among whom was Osemus, 1800 to 1824, and then the 8th Asante Sayam, who then also went to war with the coast. So you had Asante becoming a northern part, a middle part, and a coastal part. But then by the time that he became Asante, his uncle had been exiled, and that Professor Makasi has told us. His uncle knew that Asante had been so decimated that he could not continue to fight, and therefore he sacrificed himself and allowed himself to be captured by the British, and that's the administration plan. So by the time my father came on the scene, he followed his uncle's footsteps and said, no, I will not do it, but I will turn the swords of my ancestors into pens and statues. How did he do that? He decided over the establishment of so many of the schools that were established in that private schools, private boys schools, private girls schools, and then also this very university here. Okay, thank you very much. But let me finish with this. Let me finish with this. In honor of my father, I have 6 children and 16 grandchildren. I'm paying 100,000 to make sure that each of my child and grandchild has a copy of the book. Thank you.
Please, a resounding round of applause for a celebration of the legacy well handed down. Nana Isiabiye is the son of the author of this book. Please, a round of applause. Thank you very much. We're gradually coming to the end of this event. We would like to acknowledge many contributions that are coming through. Please, don't be in a hurry. A lot more books have come through. At the end, we invite you to the table to make your offers. We would like to acknowledge this one, particularly because of their name. Honorable Asante from Sikawo Bush. Hey, 10,000 Ghana cedis. Please, a round of applause for Sikawo Bush. As we bring this event to a close, below the chair, Your Royal Majesty, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in every kingdom, there are men and women who act as ambassadors, opening the frontiers of the kingdom for all to come through. Otumfuo Osei did it same as he invited Konfuanochi Today it has fallen to me, a man from Volta, by the generosity of my brother, a beloved son of Otufo, a seasoned engineer fellow of the Ghana Institute of Engineers, chairman of the board of governors of the Millennium Excellence Foundation, and always serving as Santiman, a member of the Silver Jubilee Committee, Nana Ata Koko. Please help me appreciate him for giving me this opportunity to be part of this great kingdom. Your Majesty, ever since your beloved son introduced me to you personally, you have taken a liking to me, encouraging me. But if I may make a matter of personal privilege, maybe it's unknown to you, but my wife happens to be the grandniece of your loyal subject, the late in whose maternal grandmother's farm the golden stool was hidden. And that makes me Asante. And so 150 years on, here we are, a proud nation. We have recovered, we have bounced back, we have shown resilience. Today, what we built is testament of the human spirit of Asante man, one of respect, one of community, one of progress and prosperity. Let us leave this place emboldened and encouraged by the example of our forebears, knowing very well that we are a proud and resilient people based on our values and our principles. And no matter the odds, we rise to receive the blessings of God Almighty, after which we shall take some momentous photographs. Let's receive the chaplain of the KNUST, the Reverend Dr. Achambo Ogalusi.
Let us pray. Our Lord and our Master, you are the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. We started this program in your name and by your grace. You have been with us, you've guided us, you've enabled us, especially all those who had to facilitate this program in one way or the other, making it so refreshing, enlightening us and refreshing our memories and helping us to come to terms and appreciate the rich history that our forebears have given to us. We pray that you'll help us all as individuals and even as a kingdom to learn from all the virtues that our forefathers, foreparents left for us. We thank you for the Silver Jubilee of Otumfuo's accession to the throne. And we thank you for all the activities and programs that have been lined up. We pray that your Spirit will continue to lead and guide us so that throughout the year, we'll have a successful and blissful celebration to the glory of your name. As we depart from here, may you lead, guide, and protect us. Take us safely to our various destinations, and we'll continue to praise and bless your name. These and many more blessings we ask through Christ Jesus our Lord. Amen. Amen.
And the chair of the Council of take a few photographs and then we'll be out of here. Professor McCaskey, please join us. The second party will consist of the panelists and the moderator. I ask that you climb up. Moderator and panelists, please come through.